How to Survive Corruption. Excerpted from the book The Art of Urban Survival by Stephen H. Verstappen. Corruption is an inescapable consequence of civilization. Seldom in the course of history have there existed states that were not corrupt, and then only briefly. Corruption also poses one of the greatest threats to a civilization, as many ancient philosophers well knew. Much of their advice railed against corruption and the need for society, especially the rulers, to adhere to a code of virtuous conduct. After all, they were supposed to set the example. That the wise advice of moralists was ignored would come as no surprise if one assumes that a corrupt society is the result of a predominantly psychopathic elite. Corruption causes an attitudinal change of a society whereby the prime motivation is a mercenary self-preservation, no longer motivated by a concern for society, nature, truth, justice, patriotism, honor, or good old honest pride in one's skills. Corruption reduces all such concerns to what's in it for me. Corruption can be instigated by either a rapaciously greedy ruling class or dwindling resources. Either way, the bottom line is always that there is less to go around. The less there is, the more people will be squeezed out of the food chain and perish. The following describes the social symptoms of corruption. Signs of corruption. Bribes and kickbacks. A bribe is any form of monetary exchange paid to a government official in order to influence that person's decisions. Police are bribed to avoid criminal charges. Judges are bribed to drop criminal cases. Jailers are bribed for better treatment. Bureaucrats are bribed to process papers. Ministers are bribed to hand out government contracts. Presidents and prime ministers are bribed to provide monopolies and business concessions. This form of extortion is made to sound less sinister by referring to the bribes as licensing fees, processing fees, administration fees, finder's fees, commissions, and campaign contributions. The business world's equivalent to the bribe is the kickback. Here, the same pattern is repeated. Developers pay kickbacks to landowners, architects pay developers, general contractors pay architects, sub-trades pay general contractors, sellers pay to buyers, and so on. Here, kickbacks are referred to as sales commissions, finder's fees, handling charges, administration expenses, and rebates. Patronage and nepotism. Corruption also increases the formation of tribal associations. Every racial, ethnic, and religious group establishes an old boy club or some other form of secret society as a means of self-defense against the predation of similar rival groups. This practice contributes to the weakening of the social machine, since less skilled and often incompetent people whose only qualifications for the position is in membership in the club replace skilled and qualified people needed to run the machinery. In addition, when an administrator's primary allegiance is to his tribe, his decision-making ability is impaired. What is good for the tribe may not be good for the overall health of the rest of society. Thus, patronage and nepotism causes the machinery of society to fall increasingly into the hands of underqualified and inept administrators making bad decisions. Gangsterism. As corruption increases, so does the competition for dwindling resources. Clubs and associations, originally started as benevolent community groups, become increasingly militant in order to compete. As the competition increases, the clubs and associations become more violent and engage in more activities that are criminal. Those that do not are swallowed up by those that do. Gangs have always existed within large populations, but their power waxes and wanes because of government policies. As a government becomes increasingly corrupt, there is a corresponding increase in the profit to be had by circumventing government regulations. Naturally, this is illegal, and so it is the criminal gangs who are best able to exploit this opportunity. The government efforts to exert stricter controls on criminal gangs causes the supply to drop and profits to increase, thus fueling even more of the criminal activity they sought to stop. The endgame consists of several criminal warlords vying for control of the government. Indeed, it could be argued that what passes for history is but a record of rival gangs fighting for power. Black market. One way to circumvent corrupt institutions is by creating a separate underground economy known as a black market. Here, goods and services that are taxed, monopolized, or sold at extorted prices by traditional industries are provided by gang elements to bypass the usual kickbacks to government and business. The black market has its foundation in excessive taxation or government restrictions on certain goods. Corrupt regimes all make the same mistake. When searching for more money from the populace to compensate for the losses of inept administration and corrupt officials, they resort to raising taxes. Modern governments have thought to disguise these tax increases by calling it different names such as licensing, processing, accessing, service fees. But all money paid to a government is, in effect, tax, regardless of what you call it. Increasing taxes only works until it reaches a certain bifurcation point, its own critical mass, after which every increase in tax rate results in less money going into the government coffers. The higher the taxes, the more people will become a part of the underground economy in order to evade taxes. An honest man is not likely to engage in criminal activities to avoid paying a reasonable portion in taxes. However, when the tax levels increase to the point where many people will not be able to survive on what is left, they are forced into a black market economy in order to feed their families. At this stage, corrupt governments will step up their tax collecting programs using police and military forces. Anarchy and war soon follow. Once greed and corruption have pervaded all facets of a society, then everyone, even decent people, must take part in the system to survive. Honest police officers cannot survive in a corrupt police force. Neither can honest politicians survive in a corrupt government, nor can honest business persons survive in a corrupt economy. Surviving corruption. For over 4,000 years, scholars and philosophers have lamented and sought a cure for greed and corruption. Everything has been tried: religion, morality, draconian laws, and harsh punishments, but these methods succeeded only briefly, if at all. While a morally upright person can succeed in fighting corruption within his or her own small sphere of influence, in the larger scale, little can be done other than trying to survive. There are two ways in which to survive such conditions: the way of grass and the way of the chameleon. The way of grass. This is the strategy of hiding in plain sight by becoming as unobtrusive and valueless as grass. Blend into the countryside, cover the light of your intelligence, and hide wealth behind the facade of poverty. To defend against exploitation of your resources, dress in old clothes, never wear any jewelry in public, never discuss financial matters, let the exterior appearance of your home deteriorate, bury or hide anything of value, carry only enough money for day-to-day needs. To defend against the exploitation of your labor, Pretend to be sick or injured. Walk around with a limp and act as though you were mentally disturbed. In this way, you can stay under the radar and evade the purges, pogroms, and extortions that inevitably accompany times of social corruption. The way of the chameleon. This means to be able to change your appearance and allegiances to fit whatever the situation dictates. In politics, this means becoming a card-carrying member, under different names, of every political party or partisan group. In this way, whichever party seizes power, you are able to show a long-standing membership. If that group is overthrown and the new power holders begin a purge, then you simply produce another card showing you are a long-time member of that party. The same method can be applied to community, religious, benevolent, and criminal secret societies. Join the same church, political party, charity organization, sports team, school, and social club as members of the ruling party. If you find yourself in dire straits, then having the right connections can help you out of trouble. Systemic social corruption will always destroy a society in one of two ways, either through civil war or revolution because the majority of citizens can no longer survive under the inhumane conditions, or through foreign invasion when the state is too crippled by corruption to mount a plausible defense against a foreign aggressor. In either case, you should next begin to prepare for war. You have been listening to How to Survive Corruption from the book The Art of Urban Survival. For more information on this and other books by the author, please visit www.chinastrategies.com.